Welcome to Eggs and Issues, a monthly business program presented by the Portland Community Chamber of Commerce. Hello, I'm Mike Violet from News Radio WGAN. Eggs and Issues is supported by presenting sponsors Bank of America and Martins Point Healthcare, in cooperation with Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, Oxford Networks, and WEX. And now, please welcome the Portland Community Chamber of Commerce President Quincy Hensel from Industrium.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us here today at Eggs and Issues. My name's Quincy Hensel. I am the Director of Community Outreach at Industrium, and I also serve as the volunteer president of the Portland Community Chamber of Commerce. I was going to say happy spring today, but I guess that was wishful thinking that we might actually have a spring and have one so early, but in case you missed it, it was 10 degrees when I got up this morning, so spring is not here yet anyway. Today we have a great event for you. We have Janine Bisaillon-Cary with us today from the Maine International Trade Center. We also have a few special guests with us today in the room. I do know that the Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development, George Gervais, is here. Thank you for joining us, Commissioner. And we also have City Councilor David Brennerman with us as well. And I don't know if there are any other councilors who maybe came in. If there are, if you could just wave your hand. Okay, I think we have Councilor Brenneman with us today. Thanks for joining. Before we get into the program, I do want to share just a few thoughts with you. I'm going to start referring to this as my Chamber Minute. I could probably come up with a better, catchier title, but it's early, so we're going to go with Chamber Minute. There's been a great deal of positive activity taking place at City Hall over the last few months. And I want to share with you one new proposal in particular, which has gained the attention of the Portland Community Chamber and our members. City Manager John Jennings has outlined a new proposal to consolidate a number of different permitting and inspection functions into one new streamlined department. The new department would include inspections, housing safety, zoning, and business licensing. These proposed changes have been something that we at the Chamber have advocated for quite some time. We applaud the city manager for bringing these significant and needed changes forward. Key elements of this plan would include eliminating some assistant positions and creating 3 permit techs who would actually be trained to review all incoming applications and would have the ability to approve permits on the spot. It also includes a new and much needed upgrade to the IT system over at City Hall. To pay for these streamlined changes and added efficiencies, there will be an increase in the assessed fees for the permits. We have had the opportunity to discuss these changes, including the fee increase, with the city manager and his staff earlier this week. And we know there are some additional changes being made, in part based on our conversations that we had. But we would really like to thank the city manager for taking on this challenge and bringing forward a streamlined and a comprehensive proposal to help make the permitting process more efficient for everybody. So whether you're an individual putting a new deck on your home or a large developer adding to our city's housing stock. These are the types of changes that we need in Portland to help support our growing and our changing city. So more to come on this as the City Council discusses this proposal in the coming week. Also, you're probably aware that there will be a referendum question on the November ballot for a minimum wage increase to $12 statewide. This initiative has been a topic of discussion at the Portland Chamber since we faced the $15 an hour citywide minimum wage referendum this past November. We've been keyed into and reviewing the landscape associated with this year's statewide initiative, and we have recommended a competing measure. Now, a competing measure is an alternative option to also be placed on the ballot. The proposed competing measure, designed in concert with other business groups, would increase the state's minimum wage in increments until ultimately landing at $10 an hour in the year 2020. The proposal would also leave the tip credit intact, and the tip credit allows restaurant owners to pay less than the minimum wage to those employees who receive tips as part of their compensation. And the competing measure also would not allow for automatic indexing. We've continued to support this idea and hope to see it gain momentum to give the voters a fair choice regarding the minimum wage increase. A coalition of nearly 10,000 individual business owners has come together, of which the Portland Chamber is a part of. The coalition is calling on legislators to support a realistic and a sustainable plan to increasing Maine's minimum wage. Now, it's going to take significant effort to get this competing measure on the ballot, and we could really use the help of all of you in this room this morning. We would encourage you to contact your state senator and your state representative and ask them to support a reasonable approach to raising Maine's minimum wage. Now, if you're interested in more information on this, you may see me after this program, or you can always contact the Portland Regional Chamber. Now, one more plug before we move on to the program. Here at Eggs and Issues, we like to be responsive to the hot topics and the burning issues of the day. So we're pleased to announce that in April 6th, we will be hosting a housing panel here to discuss the housing situation in Portland, and you will see there on the slide who our speakers include. So it should be a pretty lively discussion, so we hope that you're able to join us on April 6th. Now on to the program. Eggs and Issues is lucky to have the support of all of our generous sponsors, and because of them, we're able to gather here every month to talk about the issues of the day. So I'd like to take a moment to thank all of them for their continued support. Our presenting sponsors are Bank of America and Martins Point Healthcare. Cooperating sponsors, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare, WEX, and Oxford Networks. Reception sponsors are Clark Insurance, KeyBank, and IDEX. Parking sponsor, Identity Group, Allen Signs with Impact. Headlight Audiovisual provides us with overall production support. Time Warner Cable's digital service video on demand broadcasts our program each month. The Forecaster serves as our print sponsor. Maine Biz is our e-media partner. WGAN, our radio sponsor, and WMTW serves as our broadcast sponsor. We also would like to thank our special community partners, who are Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, New England Cancer Specialists, the Bangor Daily News, and the University of Southern Maine. I feel like this is an Academy Awards acceptance speech. They're going to cue the music any minute in the background to cut me off. AAA Northern New England and Springboard Staffing support our Tomorrow's Leaders and Entrepreneurs program, which allows local students and faculty to attend Eggs and Issues every month. Today, we welcome students and faculty from Cheverus, Catherine McCauley, Portland, Greeley, and Falmouth High Schools, as well as the Southern Maine Community College and University of Southern Maine. I'd like to ask the students and faculties from the schools to please stand and be recognized. Wow, that's one of the biggest crowds I have seen yet from the high schools and universities. Thank you all for being here. And let's mix it up a bit, shall we? I'd like now everyone in the room who is an alumni of one of our local high schools or one of our local universities in the greater Portland area to please stand. Wow. That is fantastic. We've had several conversations lately at the Chamber about the importance of the Chamber being connected to and integrated with our local academic institutions, so it's great to see so many alumni here in the room with us today. Baker Newman Noyes supports our Community Corner, which allows area nonprofits to promote their organizations here at Eggs and Issues. This month, our Community Corner is the United Way of Greater Portland. United Way of Greater Portland is where the community comes together to help children, individuals, and families in ways that create a brighter future for all. Their mission is to improve people's lives by mobilizing the caring power of our community. No other single organization has the scope, expertise, and influence to bring together hundreds of individuals, businesses, human service agencies, cities, and foundations around a common vision of creating maximum impact and achieving long-lasting change. Focused on the fundamental issues of education, financial stability, and health, United Way of Greater Portland supports nearly 36 partner agencies to support 79 programs serving all walks of life. By uniting a powerful regional network of best-in-class partners, United Way is getting things done. By aligning a region-wide network around the same vision, more children succeed in school, more individuals lead healthy lives, and more people have the opportunity to achieve financial well-being. When you invest in United Way, you invest in a stronger community. Joining us today from the United Way are Liz Cotter-Schlacks, President and CEO, as well as Mara Robinov-Moorhead, Relationship Manager. We also have with us today the current Portland Regional Chamber President, Mike Bork from MEMIC, who is serving as the 2016 United Way Campaign Chair. And we have with us Joan Fisher from UNE, who is a board member of United Way. Would you all please stand? I personally want to thank Liz for being here today and for being such a fantastic partner with the Chamber. I have had the great pleasure of working with Liz on several Chamber initiatives, and she's just an absolute dynamo. And she's really making things happen at United Way and in our city, so thank you, Liz. We are very lucky to have you. An important part of Eggs and Issues every month is recognizing our new Chamber members. If you are a new member or perhaps a returning member who has taken a little time away from the Chamber and is now back, would you please stand? Thank you for joining us this morning. Now on to today's presentation. Just a reminder that we will have a Q&A session after the presentation. There are microphones in the middle of the room. If you would please state your name and organization before posing the question, that would be fantastic. Today's presenter is Janine Cary from the Maine International Trade Center. In addition to leading the Trade Center and consulting with Maine's internationally active industries, Janine serves on the boards of the Maine Port Authority, the Eastern Trade Council, and the International Business and Logistics Industry Advisory Board at Maine Maritime Academy. She also serves as a State Director of International Trade. Janine has worked for over 20 years in international markets, including the seafood export and consumer goods import markets. Her work has focused mostly on Western Europe, Latin America, and East Asia. I have had the chance to get to know Janine a little bit over the last few months, and she is just an extremely dynamic woman doing pretty phenomenal things in Portland and across our state and really moving us onto the international stage. I am so glad she's able to be here with us today, so it is with great pleasure that I introduce to you Janine Cary.
Good morning, everyone. I have to bring this down because we have a little bit of a height differential here, Quincy. I really want to thank the Greater Portland Chamber of Commerce, Quincy, Chandra, the rest of the crew, Jason Lundy for, I think, suggesting us and being very active with the Trade Center, for inviting me. And since we're asking people to stand up, I'm going to ask my board of directors and staff to stand. They've been awesome. All of the things that we're going to talk about today don't get done alone. It's all as a team, and I really want to thank all of you guys for coming. So could we have a round of applause? So participating in Eggs and Issues this year is particularly significant for us at the Trade Center. We're going to be celebrating our 20th gala anniversary this year right here at the Holiday Inn. You guys all have cards on your tables about that. And we're taking in some pretty strong topics in terms of what Maine needs to be doing to get technology forward. We're putting together some really exciting workshops, keynote speakers, which I can't let out who it is yet, but I think will thrill all of us. And this has also given us a time to reflect on how much has changed in Maine's international landscape since 1996 when we were formed. We all know the world's getting smaller, more accessible, more globally connected. Back in '96, when we were formed, social media wasn't out there like LinkedIn or Facebook. And communication was very expensive. I can remember calling overseas and it being $22 for 10 minutes calling Europe. Now we have Skype and FaceTime and these free apps. So really, many of these tools that are out there and at our fingertips that we don't think about today have really changed in terms of who can be globally active. And many of the global transportation linkages we have now via ocean, via rail, via air, were not really robust in 1996. We had some challenges with logistics when we were helping companies and what's the best way to get there, and quite expensive ways to get your product down to New York or New Jersey in order to connect overseas. On the logistics front, we all know the story of Port of Portland with AIMSKIP's arrival and connecting Maine directly with major Eastern Canadian, Northern European, and Nordic ports. And this investment has expanded what was really, many of us remember, a small barge service to a substantial containerized freight service. And we just logged 106,000 metric tons of cargo flowing in and out of Portland in 2015, which was distributed to over 45 states. That's a record. We're really excited about it, and that's bringing a lot of opportunity. In addition, Portland Jetport is linking us to most major U.S. hubs, and if any of you have been following Logan Airport in Boston, probably over the last few years, they've added on so many direct flights to Istanbul, to Tokyo, to Shanghai. All of these things are important pieces of getting us more and more globally connected, whether it's our freight or whether it's our people. So the internet, transportation, all of these things, I think, have really allowed small and medium-sized businesses, our manufacturers, and all of this to get more globally connected. Speaking of which, this slide just shows you a little bit from '96 to 2015, what we've had an increase of export sales. These are reflecting a lot of the changes that we talked about, I think, that have helped Maine get on the map in the last 19 years, going from $1.38 billion to $2.72 billion in 2015. Trade now supports over 177,000 jobs in the state. That's 1 in 5 jobs. And statistically, those jobs are better paying jobs than jobs that are not involved with trade. U.S. Department of Commerce says up to 18% higher wages are paid by internationally active companies. So that's important to us as we're all talking about minimum wages, wages in general in Maine. How do we improve that? Well, if we get more global companies, we're going to get those wages up. And according to the U.S. Census figures, in 2015, Maine actually outpaced the national average. This doesn't happen much, so we should really celebrate this. U.S. exports were down, actually, last year. A lot of that was due to the oil industry. They were down 7%. Our Maine exports were up by 0.5%. That's not huge, but we'll take it as a positive and hopefully be growing from there. This map shows a little bit, it's a 2014 map, unfortunately, but you can see where's Maine trading with. These are some of the top 6 trading partners for 2014 that the Business Roundtable did, with markets, Canada by far our largest market, which I don't expect in our lifetime is going to change, China, Malaysia, Japan, the Netherlands, and Mexico, which was a little bit surprising. This year, as we're tracking 2015, Hong Kong, Korea, and Italy also made our top 6 markets. So you can see that the major players for our exporters are really our neighbors in North America, Canada and Mexico, Europe, obviously, with our proximity and new services that we can service there, and Asia, of course, because of the tremendous development that's gone on over the last 10 to 15 years. We now have 2,100 companies in Maine exporting to 183 different destinations. We like to see that. I know bankers like to see diversity in their portfolios. We like to see it in our trade numbers. So many of you guys might be saying at this point, okay, I get it, trade's important, but how can I use the Trade Center? What do you guys actually do for companies in Maine? Since our inception, we were charged. I remember Governor King at the time saying, I want you to be the VP of sales for Maine companies internationally. And being a former VP of sales, I felt very comfortable in that position. And I do really think that we do, as a team, a good job in terms of servicing a suite of services. We do our trade assistance services, which is technical trade assistance, trade education, many of you have been to our trade forums, and global trade outreach. On the global trade outreach side, you'll see we coordinate booths and pavilions at international trade shows in targeted sectors. This slide shows the Qingdao show last fall in 2015, which happened after our China mission, where a special emphasis was made on Maine lobster. As all of you know, Maine lobster to Asia has grown hugely, and to China itself has grown over 400% in the last 10 years. So, and in fact, next week we'll have 5 Maine companies at the JEC show, the composite show in Paris, the largest composite show in the world. We'll have a Maine booth, and we'll be featuring the University of Maine's Composites and Advanced Materials Lab. We'll be featuring Searle, our composites lab, at Brunswick Landing, and a number of our Maine exporters. We're coordinating matchmaking meetings. We also do incoming missions, and when we have buyers coming in to some of these shows, we coordinate matchmaking meetings at the shows. So we will have a number of groups at the Boston Seafood Show, very large contingency from China. We'll have a good-sized contingency from Iceland, and also at the Brussels Seafood Show, which will be coming up in April. And I have to give a shout out to Diversified Communications because they manage both of them, so it's all Maine all the time. Trade missions like the one featured here to Iceland with Governor LePage and President Grimson of Iceland assist Maine companies in finding international buyers. We hate the word boondoggle, and we don't ever use it. And we also are one of the states that bring more companies on trade missions than almost any other state in the country. We always have our partners overseas amazed for a little state like Maine how many companies actually come with us and do matchmaking. And the minimum we generally do, particularly if it's a gubernatorial mission, is 10 companies. So if we don't have enough companies, we're not going there. And people often ask, how do you figure out what destination? Well, that's totally driven by our membership and by our companies in terms of we look at the trade trends and then we have them vote because it's all about them accessing those markets. We're often using the U.S. Department of Commerce's Gold Key matchmaking services where your meeting's pre-vetted. So by the time you get there, the buyer you're meeting with knows your product, has a price range, knows whether or not it fits within what they're looking for, and we try to guarantee as much success as we can. We also really have worked hard in the last couple of years, and I have to give a shout out to Wade Merritt because he's done most of the management on this, to federal and local grants to offset those costs, because for small businesses getting abroad, doing business, it's expensive. So SBA, I think we have Diane from SBA here, has been very gracious with a STEP grant, which I would say to any of you, if you're working with small businesses, come see us. If we can get funds for it to offset costs, we'll do that. MTI has had some really great grants recently, really around the North Atlantic development, and Maine Manufacturers Extension Partnership has been very helpful for manufacturers looking to go abroad. These grants are essential. Again, 85% of our exporters are small and medium-sized businesses. They really need help for that first push, that first carrot to get those sales. And once they're in there, it's a lot easier when you're going and visiting existing accounts than trying to build up and hope for market. On the home front, our trade specialists provide technical trade assistance to over 1,300 trade assistance requests per year from local businesses. And this trade assistance, in tandem with our trade education forums and seminars, train Maine's globally developing businesses. This is great for new hires, individuals that are just starting to get into international trade, you know, employee development, workforce development, and even in the service providers. I think that it's really important for all of us kind of to understand the global landscape and what it takes to get successful in it. Everything we do is part of economic development. We have the Commissioner of Economic Development here today, and we would not be here without DECD, so I'd really like to recognize that, and Commissioner Gervais has been one of our most staunch supporters and likes to push us to do more, which is a good thing. Last year alone, we had $13.3 million of projected sales by our exporters from the activities that we did overseas, and a 91-to-1 ratio on our export assistance grants. So enough about what we do. Hopefully you know a little bit more about what the Trade Center does. I want to talk about 3 new initiatives that we've launched over the last several years. Some of you will know these well. We've gotten some really good press on some. Some have been a little bit more quiet because our focus really has been overseas. With AIM-SCIP's arrival in Maine about 3 years ago, it became clear that we had some new and exciting capacities to get efficient and affordable freight to Eastern Canada, Scandinavia, the Nordics, and Northern Europe. And this area of the world represents about $400 million of export opportunity. But we knew there was much more that was ripe for development. This started with President Grimson from Iceland, who came to Trade Day. And we had a trade mission that went to Iceland, and also we've had a lot of Icelandic exchanges coming here. When President Grimson was here, for those of you who saw him, he strongly advocated for Maine to position itself as a national leader for Eastern U.S. in Arctic activities as they emerged. Not only because we're so well positioned, particularly as the Northwest Passage is starting to open up and it may become in the next generation a trade lane itself, but also because what was going on or what is going on in the climate and sea changes in the Arctic have direct effect on our economy right here, whether it's fisheries, whether it's weather, whether it's biology in general. So an MOU was signed between the governor and President Grimson, and the Trade Center, in cooperation with the Maine Department of Economic Development, formed what we affectionately call MNATO, which you'll see the logo there. And we brought on Dana Eidsness as its dynamic director. Last fall, as a result of the alliances and trade activities over the last 2 years, MNATO organized a delegation to go to Iceland's Ocean Cluster House and also participate in the Arctic Assembly in Reykjavik. And I will tell you that that goes on every year. So anyone who's interested in going, get your tickets early because it gets packed up. There's over 1,500 participants and about 50 countries represented there. This year we had almost 50 Mainers there. That was a record. We were baffled by how many people signed up at the last minute, and I felt like we almost took over that conference. It was so exciting because we had Mainers talking at workshops on transportation, Mainers talking about climate change, our Climate Change Institute up at the University of Maine, fisheries and marine activities. UNE played a huge role in terms of that, and as well as port and infrastructure needs and opportunities in the Arctic and North Atlantic. And the culmination was Senator King's speech at the end, who had a very moving presentation about the responsibilities of the United States because we were taking on the leadership of the Arctic Council chairmanship. So I'm giving you just a 1-minute video of what it's like at this Arctic Circle assembly, and hopefully this will work. So hopefully that gave you a little feel. You saw downtown Reykjavik and their amazing conference center. I've had the pleasure of going to Iceland a couple times now, and I'm never disappointed. There's always something new to discover, whether it's in Reykjavik or climbing volcanoes. So there's something for everyone. The next thing I'd like to talk about is Study Maine. As you know, Maine has had some really troubling demographic challenges over the last decade with our aging population and dwindling student populations. And as a result, this has put a lot of pressure on our schools and our colleges in terms of decreasing enrollment and necessary revenue for any of them to stay in business. And as we were executing our yearly trade missions, we were seeing more and more schools coming to us saying, you know, we'd like to go on the trade mission. We need to be meeting with agents and schools and getting more international students participating. And really the academies, we have 10 academies in the state of Maine, were playing a really strong role in this, and some of them had been doing it for some time. So again, I had Wade Merritt is on a national CITO group with all of the other state trade offices, and we were also seeing other states are getting involved in this in terms of this international student attraction. So we should do something about it because our schools definitely need help, and what a great thing to make our schools more globally connected and diversified in what, again, is a challenge as a very homogeneous state. So what started as a few schools in the Study Maine program, I think we started with 4, and I think we're up to, I don't know, over 20, maybe 25 at this point, has really blossomed in terms of the student attraction, in terms of coming on trade missions. We've had trade missions just had a trade mission to Asia, to Vietnam and Thailand. We're getting packed with these schools wanting to get more and more connected. I think this is something really healthy. I think this is something that gets us, you know, you think about the alumni, you think about the parents, you think about the kids. It all fits together, both in terms of getting our businesses known, getting more foreign direct investment. It's really an important driver. Right now, we have about 2,000 international students studying at the high school and college level in Maine. And by latest measurements, this represents about $87 million of inflow in terms of not counting tuition, but just counting room and board and expenditures. So it's an economic driver in itself. And I think that these foreign students are really strengthening our international ties. And if you think about it, you know, everything is local, all politics is local, all relationships are local. If you start meeting people from a certain country and have somebody to visit when you're going over there, suddenly the world becomes a little smaller and it's a lot more comfortable doing business there and having that global connection. So this is a video we put together. You might say, wow, this is very, minimalist. Keep in mind, we're showing this to parents, students. English is a second language. We translate it into different languages, and the focus is very limited on those things that these international students are looking for. got a really great response to that on our we made that for the last Study Maine mission and really got a great response to it. You can see lots of focus on STEM business, but also valuing liberal arts, which some of particularly the Asian communities haven't emphasized as much, and they're seeing the impacts on that on R&D and creativity. So lastly, I'd like to talk about Invest in Maine, and this is probably our best kept secret because we do all our marketing overseas and not so much talking about it here in Maine. We got launched in about 2007, and this is an international business attraction program to really cultivate more foreign direct investment. Maine has over 100 foreign direct investment companies, representing around 32,000 jobs. And as you can see on the screen, a lot of names that you know, a lot of investor companies from Canada, Europe, and now we're getting more and more from Asia. Both large-scale investors like Nestlé's and Emira and Molnica, but also smaller-scale companies like Inspiro that just started at Brunswick Landing, or PK Floats in Lincoln. So it's really, what's nice is we're seeing that across the board for small, mid-cap, and larger companies. Through state and private sector funding and federal funding, we established Invest in Maine 2 overseas offices. We have an office in London that covers the EU and an office in Shanghai that covers Asia. With these offices, their primary thing is to develop business leads that really match the assets that we have here in Maine. And our focus has been mostly on the life science industry. We have some very large-scale life science companies such as Alere or Jackson Labs or IDEX that we get to show that attraction for. We've got some great capabilities at University of New England in terms of support for some of these. And also USM, I think, is building up that area. I think that on the advanced materials side, we've been focusing on that and very much appreciate the labs. And if you haven't been there, the composite labs at University of Maine, Orono, and also at Brunswick Landing at the Searle Lab have really made great strides. I think that I'm going to show another video. This is a little bit longer, and what I want you to think about is when we're showing this video, it's usually to people that have never been, they may have been to Disney or New York. They have no idea where Maine is. Half of them think that we're a Canadian province when they look at a map. So, you know, it's really giving some basics and giving a good feel of, you know, the natural beauty of our state, the lifestyle, and also that we have some pretty cool business going on here. Thank you. Often I show that here and people are like, oh, I really want to go there. You know, it's like, these are all pictures of me. But that gets such a great rise out of audiences as we show them abroad. I always tease Carol Ann Willett, the head of tourism, that I'm doing half of her job when we go abroad. Because it's as much a tourism attraction as anything else. So what's ahead? We have and the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development to further increase our foreign direct investment. This is a tool that a lot of states have used. It's complex and it's going to be challenging, but we have already identified a number of projects that could be EB5 projects. Keep your fingers crossed that USCIS loves us and will approve the regional center. And I'm very excited because it is statewide, so that some of the parts of the state that really do need investment we can be targeting. We're going to be hosting the Arctic Council Senior Arctic Official Meeting in October. And that's bringing about 200 high-ranking officials from across the world. It's been described as the G20 of Arctic policy. It's a closed session, but what we're going to be doing is bringing in a lot of information around what's going on around the Arctic. We've got a great host committee. I know many of you and your companies are on that host committee in terms of how do we make the most on really making Portland shine with these leaders from across the world, and also getting more and more of the public to be familiar with what's going on in terms of Arctic activities. So a lot coming ahead, and you'll be hearing a lot, I think, in the news about that. And if you want to get connected with that, come see me or Dana Eidsness. Trade Day Gala, you've got the cards. We'd love to see you there. We have 2 trade missions coming up to Scandinavia in June and Toronto in July. And we're starting to, I think Scandinavia, we just launched that marketing this week, so we're starting to get people. That's mostly going to be to Sweden and Norway, and then we may have a add-on to Finland. They're celebrating the 4th of July in Finland. I'll explain that to you later. But anyway, I think that they're going to be great trade missions. And I guess that my final comment is get engaged. You know, we're your trade center. We're always open to ideas of how to be more relevant. A lot of what we get for work and new blood coming in and new companies are from you guys, you know, out there working in the business community and hearing about, I have this idea. Well, that's what we're there for, is kind of flush it out, handhold it through, and get some more successes. So I guess I'll leave that with all of you is, you know, come to Trade Day this year, find out about what we're all about, hear from some of our workshops, and definitely reach out to us. Thank you. Do we have time for Q&A, Quincy? Oh, there you are. So, any questions? I'll do my best to answer them.
Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Hi, I'm with the Archangel Committee, and you mentioned the Northwest Passage. I understood it was going to be perhaps a Northeast Passage. Northwest was too shallow, and Northeast would be shortening the route from China to the East Coast by a couple of weeks, which would be like a 25% reduction in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about the China to over Arctic to East in terms of coming east our way, you're right. It is. We're talking about China over to Maine, and that, I think, it's not there yet, but I think that we've had a couple of different exploratory groups going through. Icebreakers is a challenge right now, so I think that that's been a common theme that goes on each year at the Arctic Circle Council.
Hi, Susan Morris. I'm a condo developer here in Portland and a Canadian. I'm curious to know whether the current exchange rate with Canada impacts any of your strategies, short-term or long-term.
Yeah, that's been a challenge. This last year, particularly, I think that we saw a dip in our exports to Canada in 2015. And I think that, I'm hopeful that as things stabilize a little bit more, that it will stabilize on the Canadian front as well. It definitely has, for certain commodities, been a challenge for some of the large-scale things like seafood and paper and products, which are some of the top exports and imports going on. Won't stop them, but it's definitely cutting in for some of our exporters and making U.S. products more difficult. I mean, that's not just unique to Canada. Obviously, the same thing with Europe, with the exchange rate going on there. And I mean, there are definitely some challenges going on global markets right now, but I think that as the energy industry gets a little bit more stabilized, Canada is so tied to energy, minerals. Could be really helpful as things stabilize to get that exchange changed again. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kate Carpenter. I'm with the Maine Technology Users Group. And I'm wondering specifically, we're entering our planning season for our 2016-17 educational sessions. And I was wondering what would be information technology specific challenges your businesses and constituents have in growing their markets abroad and bringing business to Maine?
Information technology challenges?
Information technology, yes.
Well, obviously, high-speed internet is something that businesses need. I think it really affects rural businesses that are not having high-speed internet yet. And I think that there's a lot of discussion at the state level about how to expand that. It is one of I talked a lot about transportation, but that, the internet connectivity is, again, transportation of information. So I think it needs to stay a priority. I think we just met with the Consul General from Latvia, or Lithuania, rather, and they have the highest speed internet in the world. Now, the EU paid for it when they joined it, and they were coming in as a new nation joining in, but they said it's made a huge difference in terms of their business connectivity and development. Yes.
Janine, I'm Peter Mills from the Maine Turnpike. I was curious to know how your organization is supported, where do you garner your financial support, and how has that changed over the last 20 years?
So we're supported half by the state of Maine through you guys, through taxpayers, and through DCD, which we very much appreciate, and the other half through private sector. We are membership-based, so similar to the chamber, and we do have sponsors that are great and sponsor a number of different activities. So in terms of the last 20 years, I would say that we were kind of stagnant for a long time, and then in the last few years, I have to say that Governor LePage has been very generous with us and the commissioner in terms of actually giving some support to some of these programs that we've been doing on a shoestring or just off private sector dollars. And that's really allowed us also to go for federal match, to do things like Invest in Maine, and to do things like Minato, the North Atlantic Development Office. So I have to say that, I never want to say that we're feeling stronger than ever, but I feel like we've definitely had a lot of support in recent years.
Over here. It's Ralph Carmona. I'm with Southern Maine Community College, and I think like a lot of people in this room, I was very much moved by the video that I saw, the last video. However, that video or videos like that have not resulted in an increase in the population of Maine or reversed the decline in terms of the population of our schools. I'm wondering, in this kind of message, are there other factors that are behind the scenes that undercut the message in your exchanges with people around the world?
Can you ask what the second part of that question is?
Okay. The increase, the decrease in Maine's population and
Yeah.
decrease in schools somehow undercuts that kind of message of that powerful video. In your exchanges around the world, in trade and so forth, with people from other companies around the world who want to perhaps come here to Maine, do they get messages that undercut that kind of message? Because that seems to be happening here in this country, where people are not coming to Maine. There's not an increase in our population and there's a decrease in our schools. Do you see that message being undercut, that message of that video being undercut by some hidden messages around the world and the exchanges that you have? That's what I'm asking. And is that obviously that's not beneficial for the state. So.
Well, I guess that I would differ with you in terms of saying that we haven't increased in terms of our student population, because we actually do have statistics that our international student population has been increasing. It's not going to show on the blip from the 1.3 million. And also there are certain visa challenges, which we don't really have a lot of control over. That's at the federal level. But I think on any of these things, all of this stuff is incremental. I mean, we can sit down and do nothing, which isn't going to increase anything. Or you can reach out and try to be pulling in new business, new youth, and new workers with much capacities into the state. So I would say that when we show this video, oftentimes and also meet with companies, we've had very good success over the last 5 years. If you look at Molnica, for example, that was bought Rhinell and Wiscasset, doubled its capacity, added a plant in Brunswick, Maine. Now they're adding another plant here in Maine that they're bringing in. I can't tell you how many people that's going to be bringing in, but it's bringing jobs. And the more jobs that we bring here, the more opportunity that we bring here, the more students we bring here, that's only going to add to the population. You have to take these things incrementally in steps, and hopefully the outcome is that we get more relevant and we get more influx. And I know that tourism has been really good as well, and starting to spread out a little bit more and the word out. Also, Maine & Company is always down in Boston and New York and pulling up people. And I think we all have to work cooperatively and together to get this messaging out and to be working towards getting new populations, getting young populations in here and vibrant, and that's going to be the next workforce. Are we? Oh, yes. I can't see with this.
Good morning. My name
eyes,
is Nicolette Reed, and I'm from Evolutions in Business, and we do export compliance training and consulting. We're based out of Massachusetts, but we go anywhere. And interestingly enough, my sister actually transferred to college here in Portland about a year ago, and I don't think we're ever going to get her back. She just loves it here so much.
Nice. We love our imports.
Yeah, she's going for business, and she just loves college here. So I don't think she's ever planning on coming back to Massachusetts. She's going to live here forever. But my question is, I'm interested in knowing, what do you consider, the top 3 high technology exports coming out of Maine?
Well, I think that we still have a very vibrant semiconductor technology going on. I know we have Texas Instruments here today. I know everybody's been watching closely what's going on with Fairchild, those engineers from all over the country and the world that come in. Life sciences, as we've been saying, constantly jobs that are needed to be filled at IDEX and at Jackson Labs and Lear and a lot of the others, especially the small spin-offs, and what we can do to help. The new Tech Place incubator is great on that, and they've been filling up, I think they have 18 companies in there now already, and putting a wet lab in there. So cultivating a location that and an atmosphere that we want new business startups, and we also want to attract some of the larger and mid-cap. And then I think that lastly, on the technology front, you know, we have so much that I think can be offered in terms of our universities and what's going on in terms of R&D. I know that every year or every couple years we get you know, questions on bonds for R&D, and so people say, oh, is it really worth it? It's so worth it. If we don't have that, we can't even get on the map with some of these companies. And I think that for students as well, that spin-off, I mean, look at what's happened with Boston and Cambridge. I lived down there, you know, in the 80s. Half of those, Cambridge was empty warehouses that you were very sketchy neighborhoods to even drive through. Now it's incredibly bustling, and that has been really driven by the colleges and universities and collaboration. So I think that those would be the three I would say we really need to pay attention to and that are driving a lot. We're also driving, you know, with WEX and groups that are doing a lot in terms of software development and IT. Again, those are things that I think are attracting new students or attracting new employees and also attracting students in from some of the feeder schools.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great, thank you.
Janine, thank you so much for being here and for your presentation. I absolutely love that last video that you showed, and I just love the theme of promoting global connectivity and diversity. We hear that all the time, and the need for both, and it's great to see an organization like Maine International Trade Center doing something about it. So thank you again for being here. Thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you April 6th for our housing panel discussion. Thanks. Have a great day.